Imagine that with 21 ingredients, you could make every dish in the world. Or imagine that with 21 different parts, you can make every machine in the world. This is impossible, and it sounds crazy, right? Yet with 21 amino acids in our body, we can make all of the proteins that we need to live, and we have tens of thousands of them. So in the previous episode, we talked about amino acids and what they are. And this episode will continue where we left off. And this is in the ribosome. So the ribosome is the protein factory of the cell. Here, the amino acids get linked together and form what we call a polypeptide chain. And this is just basically a chain of linked amino acids. So the amine group of one amino acid gets linked to the acid group of the other amino acid, like this. And these can vary in length. One of the smallest proteins that we have in our body is insulin. This one has 51 amino acids. The biggest one is called titin and it has 35,000 amino acids. This is massive. When amino acids come out of the ribosome in a polypeptide chain, they're still just a chain, so they are not functional proteins yet. And for this, they have to take a special shape, and this is called the protein folding. You can imagine it as a string of Lego blocks. But to build houses and structures and cars and everything else you can build with Lego, it needs to take its shape. And this is what we call protein folding. Without the right shape, the proteins can't do their work. Just to give you an understanding of how complex this is, the amino acid sequence for a ton of proteins have been known for over 30 years. But to actually predict and understand how these proteins get to their final shape, that is something we only slowly start to discover now, with the help of massive supercomputers and artificial intelligence. In the previous video, we talked about the different types of side chains for the amino acids. So the ones that are polar or non-polar or charged. So all of this plays a huge role in the way the proteins eventually fold. Because polar molecules, like water is also polar, they like to interact with each other. So polar molecules and the amino acids with the polar side chains tend to end up on the outside of the protein where they can interact with their environment. However, the amino acids with the non-polar side chains don't like to interact. So they tend to stick to the inside of the protein. And then we have the amino acids with the charge on the side chain. And these charges are also very crucial to forming bonds that will eventually determine the shape of the protein. To understand how important this correct protein folding is, we only have to look at what happens if it doesn't go perfectly. There are tons of diseases that we have that are caused by incorrect protein folding. And the one that we're gonna discuss this next week, the zombie apocalypse one, is one of the most interesting. If you know what we're gonna talk about next week, leave it in the comments. See you next week. Ciao.